Good morning to all of you, and it's good to be back here in the Consulate General in New York. Memories of this hall, a number of previous visits and a number of previous events which have been hosted here. Today, let me thank ORF and UN in India and CGI for hosting this event and putting this together to speak about what is happening in the AI space and specifically in what's happening in India and a number of these areas. And it's a pleasure to be here with you to talk about what is it that India is doing in the AI space. And I think in some ways it's a good occasion and it's a good opportunity to talk about it, partly because I think explicitly this is now recognized as a different and as a third model, which is not as resource intensive, which is not as intensive in terms of looking at throwing money at particular solutions, but is seen to be much more effective in two ways, in the sense of how it makes frugal innovation possible in terms of how with limited resources you're able to innovate, and B, actually looks at a completely different aspect. Thus far, the debate on AI has largely been as to how much of compute capacity can you set up, how much of infrastructure can you set up, how many models can you build, and how effectively can you build those, and how big can you build those. But I think what India is attempting to do answers slightly different questions. It's a question of where you will use AI and how effectively you will use AI. I was at a session yesterday in the morning where somebody pointed out that 70% of the use of many of the large LLMs is basically frivolous use. It's not something which is productive or not something which is resulting in some outcome which will be productive. What India has the opportunity to offer is two things. One, that you build both smaller models and you build applications which would then be relevant in specific areas in terms of delivering what you can in specific areas, whether it is education, whether it is healthcare, whether it is manufacture, whether it is agriculture. Specific areas where you can deliver. Second thing is, once you build these applications, you have to actually deploy them. So this fear of, everybody losing their jobs because AI is coming in and your job will go away, to some extent is mitigated because, once the most labor-intensive part of what needs to happen in AI is the actual part of deploying a particular application in a particular situation and making sure that it works there. You will still need people. To some extent, it's almost like another Y2K moment for what it was for the Indian software industry 25 years ago. It's virtually a similar situation in terms of how you're going to actually deploy applications of AI in different situations to make it happen. So that's critically what I think where India has a possibility. India has something which it can definitely offer the world, and something which will truly be beneficial, particularly not just to India itself, but to the rest of the world as well, both the global south, where similar models can be adopted, and to other parts of the world where the deployment will eventually have to take place and it'll have to be done. Next, please. So that's truly what I think we are trying to see, whether we would be able to deploy AI in a way which will actually work for people. And I think that is where boosting productivity, boosting innovation, boosting economic growth becomes such an important and vital part of what we are attempting to do. The next one is, of course, enabling inclusion, because you don't want to leave anybody out of it. So even the model that we have adopted as far as deploying the AI compute facility in the country is concerned, it's a slightly different model. In fact, I had a very interesting conversation once with Jensen Huang of NVIDIA in Mumbai, where he asked me saying, why don't you simply buy 30,000 GPUs from us? So I said, no, that's not the way we want to do it. He said, Denmark is doing it, so why can't you? So he said, no, that's not what we want to do. What we want to do is to actually support the Indian private sector to establish their own compute capacity and then make sure that it is accessible to India's researchers, India's students, India's innovators, India's entrepreneurs on a subsidized basis, and they can reach out to more of it. And that's precisely what we went ahead and do. Of course, it's not as straightforward and easy as simply buying the GPUs, but you're sort of encouraging others to do it. But at last count, we already had more than 38,000 GPU, which had been established in this basis and expanding. And today we offer these GPUs in India, even without the subsidy, at about half the price that it's available anywhere else in the world. On a per GPU hour basis, it's about half the price. It was about, I think, last heard it's a little less than $1. It's a little less than $1 for a GPU hour, which is about half the price of what it would be available elsewhere. So the idea is that resource needs to be available on a broader basis. And likewise, we need to make available, and what India has a wealth of is data. And we need to make available this data on a curated and annotated basis, having anonymized it so that, personal and private information is taken out of it. But you have enough data sets which can then offer themselves for the kind of deployment and to develop the kind of applications that we're looking for. And a lot of this data also has to be and is in various Indian languages. And that's the other big opportunity that India offers, that 22 languages, we have models which are being developed across those. We have a lot of knowledge and a lot of information which is captured based on what is available in the country and what different people actually experience on a day-by-day basis, and which is probably not available in a Western-driven model, which will not have that wealth. So those are the key elements which then come into this entire focus, and that is how I think our intent is to really push both in terms of what businesses do and in terms of what governance does, in terms of having a data-driven basis on which decisions are pushed and we move forward. Next, please. And India's, the strengths that we already have, I spoke about, the digital stack which has been prepared in India in terms of a robust digital public infrastructure, which everyone talks about, what has happened with the digital stack, what is available across, and what everybody can use in an ongoing basis. More than 1 billion users of mobile phones and mobile internet, and people who use all those facilities ready. That's one key element of the digital public infrastructure being already in place. The other part of it, of course, is an AI-ready workforce. The workforce in India, the Stanford AI Index also shows that in terms of a workforce, you have probably the largest STEM-educated population available at any one location, and every year more than 1 million STEM graduates who come up and who are there to enable that. Increasingly, we have a data-driven governance under the India AI mission as we speak. And I was at an event about a week ago in Delhi where we were talking about this, and I had looked at my numbers and I found that there was a report which was being released by MeitY Aayog, our think tank organization, which in their report had written that there are 350 data sets which are available on the AI Kosh, which is our portal. And I had my information based on a note which had been given to me just the day before, which said it was about 1,500. So I said, there are 1,500 of them, you've got the number wrong. And my minister spoke about 20 minutes after me, so he checked online as he was talking, and he found that it had already crossed 2,000. So it was 2024, and I should have checked this morning what the number was, but it keeps increasing that rapidly in terms of the data sets which are available and which we are able to make available for this kind of work. And innovation is something in terms of having the third largest ecosystem for startups in the world, and newer companies coming up all the time, newer companies able to use this, and solving very, very local problems. In fact, one of the AI applications that these guys had figured out was fixing cameras on, Uber drivers, and, there are a lot of these two-wheeler delivery guys who are all over the place, the Swiggies and the Zeptos and so on. You fix the cameras, you study the road, and report back on where the potholes are and how do you fix them later. So, these are the kind of data-driven and these are the kind of innovation-driven applications which are being increasingly used in the country. Next, please. The AI mission, incidentally, has been an interesting way. We got this approved in March of 2024, and now it's seen as an interesting model which can be adopted by most of the world. I already spoke about, especially in the global south, I already spoke about the AI compute, 38,000, which is done on a decentralized basis by a number of private companies and which we sort of pick up. India AI models, foundation models, being developed across as another key pillar. We have already awarded 8 of them, and we should have, by the end of this year, India's own sovereign AI model, which would be working. We're also working with the Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay, and they are working on Bharat Gen, which is going to be a key model that will get put together, almost a trillion parameter model, which should be launched by the time many of you hopefully would be attending the India AI Summit in February of 26. So that's the pace at which this is going. We're already hosting more than 400 models of various kinds, particularly those related to use of language. And between, you can actually converse, and most of it is voice-based, which I think in the Indian context is very critical, that people are able to access the internet on voice-based communication, speak into a phone, and then, it just gets processed thereafter. So that's where it really helps. The datasets platform, I already talked about how quickly it's growing. The Applications Development Center, that is the heart of what we are attempting to do in terms of making sure that there are a number of applications which are developed, which can be deployed across different sectors. Some of it is based on problem statements that ministries and organizations give us. Some of it is based on local ideas that people want to sort of seed and take up, and we support those. India AI Future Skills, which again we are attempting to train at least about 10 million people into that space of being comfortable with AI. And that training and that skilling is across a range. In terms of, if you look at it right from just being aware of AI awareness, which is critical, and it is across the board in a range of things. It is meant for civil servants. We have an online training platform called Karmayogi IGOT, in which today the second most popular course after yoga is AI for governance. So yoga at work is still the most popular course. But yes, the second most popular one is that. But in addition to that, so nearly 1 million people subscribe to that, civil servants at various levels and state and central government organizations. But in addition, there are also people whom we need to make aware of what AI can do for them and that possibility. So that is at the lowest level. Then we sort of train people in data annotation and putting together data, which is a range of people who will work. You can just actually make money collecting voice data and other forms of data. So that's the second level of skilling which happens. Then, of course, there are the regular programs across at the undergraduate level, the graduate level, and also PhD programs, which we support in each of these areas. So all the way from research, all the way down to the lowest level. And today's, of course, effort is that every course, in all schools, in all colleges, universities, AI is taught to students of all disciplines. Everyone needs to know this as a foundational and as a horizontal technology which is applied across. Safe and trusted AI is another vital area, and I'll speak a little more about it as we go along in terms of what we are intending to do in AI governance and how we are intending to approach that. And of course, startup financing, which is a critical element of what is happening. And in fact, that is something which should interest many of you as well, because as part of the build-up to the AI Summit, we are doing hackathons, and we are doing fairly large, and some of the hackathons are for children UI AI, so between 13 and 20 years of age. There's one exclusively for women entrepreneurs, and there's one for others globally. And in addition, there is to be a fairly large pitch fest where more than about 2,000 odd startups would start, and then we'll sort of distill to about 100 at the final level come February. So this is how I think fairly extensive financing in that space is taking place. Move on, please. So we intend, as I said at the beginning, to make India an AI use case capital for the world. I mean, that is, I think, where the opportunity really arises. Right now, there's a lot of investment in AI. People are spending money all the time. The revenue potential is not yet clear. And I think this is where the revenue potential lies. How do you actually use it? How do you deliver value? How do you make sure that productivity goes up, efficiency goes up? How does money come out of it eventually? Just to give you a couple of examples. If you're looking at, say, next please. If you're looking at ways in which conversationally you can pay for various services using UPI, which is part of our digital public infrastructure stack. Incidentally, I should tell you that last week UPI and Visa did almost the same number of transactions in India in terms of value. So, that's how it's catching up very, very rapidly. And the idea here is increasingly you can do it on a voice basis. It's that much more comfortable. Your ability to type, your literacy levels don't really matter. And also it doesn't really matter what language you speak. You can speak any of the 22 languages of India and still be understood and go forward. And I think that's a huge offering you can actually make to the rest of the world as well. You don't have to be necessarily English speaking in order to use this. Likewise, another element in terms of what is possible, next please. What is possible in the healthcare segment. We used it extensively during COVID, and that is now being used across in terms of using digital public goods for AI in healthcare and across the entire gamut of what needs to happen in healthcare in the Ayushman Bharat digital mission, where healthcare is offered at different locations in the country. And this is an example where using AI, you're able to make even critical care available. How do you run ICUs remotely? How do you run, those kind of facilities remotely, telemedicine remotely? All of that is becoming much more of an operation as a result of use of machine learning and AI. Next, please. And I talked about Bhashini. I talked about what is it that we can actually do in a language. Bhashini is an offering which the government has developed with a number of institutions across the country. So it does automatic speech recognition, translation services, transliteration, text-to-speech, all of it, speech-to-speech, and as I said, across 22 languages, and now we are going to smaller dialects across the country as well. So that's the big area there. Next, please. I spoke about, responsible AI innovation, which is basically on, safe and trusted AI. And I think it's an important issue to address because of the fear that AI brings out in different economies. See, I think one big difference between, say, India and what happens in, say, the Western world is that, see, the number of white-collar jobs in India is still very limited compared to the total population that we have and the total working age population that you have. So the fear of losing a white-collar job, which is what AI has really given to the world today, is not such a big fear in the Indian context because there's less to lose. There's more to gain, and especially as you apply AI in more innovative spaces. So the essential thing that we're looking at is how do you make sure that AI is there for innovation and support productivity growth and efficiency? So that becomes the key element. So we don't want the governance aspect to come in the way right in the beginning. There are many aspects of it, many aspects of what AI does today where existing laws are adequate to take care of. Everyone is worried about deep fakes and, the kind of harm that we can do. I think we've addressed that issue with existing laws that we have in the country in terms of how deepfakes and their influence can be sort of brought under control in some way. The second element that we're all concerned about is personal data. And our DPDP Act is, in that sense, a fairly innovative approach, because what it does is it gives the data principal, to whom the data belongs, control as to how the data is to be used, and consent forms the basis of that. So that's another key element. We've also set up the India Safety Institute, which is a network of institutions across the country which can enable this to happen. So we believe that while we stand ready to legislate and while we stand ready to regulate, we are still at a stage where we shouldn't throttle innovation, and regulation shouldn't throttle innovation in the space yet. So while we are ready in case there is any kind of harm, it's a space that we watch closely. It's a space where we learn closely from the experience of other countries. It's not an area that we want to venture into just yet. I think there's space to innovate, there's space to grow. There's a space for a number of constructive and productive things to be done with AI before we try to start getting it more under control. So that is, I think, the key element that India wants to. That is why impact is such a critical element of what we are trying to do, which is why, as far as India is concerned, we found this whole thing move. At Bletchley Park, when the first AI summit was held, it was called the AI Safety Summit, and safety was uppermost in everyone's mind. By the time you move to Seoul and Paris, it was called the Action Summit, saying, let's get something done. And now I think we want to establish that it's an impact summit in terms of what is it that you can deliver as impact at scale. And that's the thought I want to leave you with. That is the leadership role that India wants to play in the AI space, both on behalf of the Global South and in terms of what is it that we can offer to the rest of the world. And clearly deliver impact, use AI to make sure that it actually impacts the life of the common people, impacts the quality of their life, ensures that both economic growth and better governance is delivered for them. And that's precisely what our goal would be, and to showcase some of these achievements, showcase some stuff which has happened around the world in this area, along with the private sector, along with large companies, along with academia, along with civil society groups and everyone else involved in that process. So let me then welcome all of you to join us on February 19th and 20th in Delhi for a series of events. It's going to be almost a week-long series of events. Look forward to seeing many of you there. Thank you very much.